Okay, so I have a strange setup this time. I have to take a look at my laptop. I can't monitor the audio from the output of the thing on YouTube. So, thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. All right. So, today's Playhouse, we're going to talk about the infamous RCM synthesis on the Yamaha SY series. It's grossly misunderstood because a lot of people thought it was something super, super, super special, which, in all honesty, that was the goal of it. It did not quite work out that way, although it is something useful. And what I hope to do today is to show you some ideas on what you can do with it, which is somewhat unique in the FM realm. So, a little bit of back history. Let me pull up the initialized patch here, more or less. All right. So, one of the things that you can do in the SY series, in your algorithms, okay, is you can freely patch a lot of connections in between everything based on the algorithm that you start with and, of course, the feedback loops. But what you're going to notice here is that all your operators have two inputs and one output. And when you have, for example, this configuration, you can do different things with these inputs across all 6 of these operators. And why does this matter relative to the history of RCM? Basically, when you look at this screen here, sorry. You'll see you have your 2 input sources that you can use, and that's based on whether you're using the external input, which can be noise, or the AWM engine, or your feedback table. Okay. So, for example, if you set up operator 1 to get an input from 6 and 4, when you look at our table here, you'll see that it's bringing the signal from 4 and 6 over to its 2 inputs. Alternately, if you wanted to, you could bring in noise or the sample side of it. And then when you look at your inputs, you'll see noise and AWM. Now, why I'm going over this is I want to show you something here. Let's change our algorithm. Let's go to, let's see. I had it earlier. Sorry, let's go to this one. So, why don't you take a look at this table here? Let me actually clear out everything. All right. You're going to see we have these various notifications. We have the operator number, we have off if it's not being used, and then you see this thing that says OPA. And what does that mean? In Yamaha and a lot of FM engines, everything is calculated operator number top down. So as you noted, you only have 2 inputs to your operators. So you look at this algorithm, I've got 3 operators going into my operator 3. So if I only have 2 inputs, what do I do? Well, in Yamaha speak, when you assign the output of an operator, you assign it either to a feedback loop, the operator below it, which is the natural flow, or what they call the accumulator. Accumulator is a side calculation where multiple things can be put together. So the reason why we see OPA here is because 5 plus 6 are into the accumulator, 4 goes directly. So what this means is that if you want to alter your relative volume of those operator groups, you can directly control operator 4 with the level amount, and then you control the amount of the accumulator here, which means you're affecting 6 and 5 together. So a little mundane, a little boring, but this is what is important about this. Way back in the day, if you we're using one of these external inputs. Okay, and specifically if you used your AWM, something interesting used to happen in the early prototypes. We're going to go back to our input, and you'll see now that it says AWM, AWM. Just to, let me do this real quick. Let me turn that off. Actually, I'll do this. So it'll tell you noise or AWM and so on. Okay. So back when we had the prototypes, if you turned on these AWM patchings, when you would look on the screen, it didn't say AWM. Two things in the days that we had it. One is it didn't say AWM, and the second thing is it didn't actually do anything, but it used to say OPH, OP capital H. And I asked Charlie Fielding, hey, why does it say OPH and why is nothing working? And he said, oh, that's for something that they're trying to get functional. And I said, what's that? It's like they are trying to utilize Hilbert transforms to do resynthesis. And I said, oh, what's that? Because I did not know. And I still barely know what they are. Because A, I'm old, and that was 30 plus years ago. So what they were attempting to do originally in this engine, in combining the sample waves and the FM, was not just to do your M1 D50 style synthesis, but they actually were trying to do an early version of resynthesis, in that the intent was the sampled waveform, okay, was not going to be a full sample. It was going to be a digitally processed reduced harmonic content sample that, when run through your FM engine, okay, the goal was to reconstitute something close to the original wave. And you may think, well, why go through all that bother? Well, the main reason why they wanted to do that is because they wanted to have harmonic control and evolution with velocity and controllers and such that mimicked an actual acoustic instrument, where it wasn't just filtering a full spectrum waveform, that the waveform actually changed. And so they were trying to utilize these Hilbert transforms, which from my understanding have a lot to do with the transmission in AM radio and phase preservation and blah, 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 to run these reduced content samples through a different mathematical equation into the FM engine, and then utilizing some of these things that are unique in the SY, which are all these initial phase offsets, all these interesting waveforms, okay, and the fixed frequency shaper mode to rebuild your original wave. And from what Charlie said, they are struggling with it, and it looks like it's going to crash and burn, so we're not sure what they're going to do with it afterwards. So indeed, it became impractical with 1988-89 technology. Apparently there were some fundamental structural issues that just were not going to work out. So they kept the patch points there, but they just changed it to a regular phase modulation relationship from the sample engine. So hopefully that's not too long and nerdy. Let me take a look at the chat. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad to see you don't have anything better to do today. So anyway, that's a little bit of the somewhat mundane history as relayed to me from Yamaha back in the day. So what are we left with? Well, what we are left with is the ability to inject the just apologize, my buttons are on the out here, to inject our sample data into the FM engine as a seventh operator. So fundamentally, that's really what we have, is we have a potential seventh operator that has its own pitch, LFO, potentially keyboard tracking, as well as filtering available to us. So this opens some possibilities for us, used judiciously. So let's get off the talking and go into some examples here. So let's pull up this guy here. And I'm going to mute out a bunch of stuff here and sort of build this one by one. So bear with me here. Bring this up here. That's good. That's fine. Let's kill this to 0. And let's go to our sample here. And let's just take it up to a triangle wave. All right, let's go and turn off all our other operators because we're going to use those later. All right, so what are we hearing? So let's go into our output section here. Let me turn on just the output of the sample side. So that is the triangle wave that we have. Come on, Fernandez. Got to fix these buttons. So turn that down. So this is our sample wave that we're using as our 7th operator. I'm going to bring it back to the triangle. Now, when we're utilizing RCM, what we want to do is you have to decide if you want to mix the waveforms or only hear the effect of it. So I'm going to actually turn off the output to the audio, okay, to the of the triangle wave. We're going to just bring it into the FM side. So let's go over there and let's see why this sounds so funky. Now, what we got going here is, let's see, we need more volume there. All right. So if I mute my AWM element, sound goes away. And this is our gain. So it's just related to our modulation index. So let's show you the other place where we deal with this. So the volume output of our element 2, again, which is our sample side here, is also going to control its mod index or modulation level. So you can see that behaves just like raising an operator level. So we're going to leave it here. So let me demonstrate some of the stuff that Yamaha was attempting to achieve with utilizing real-time phase modulation in terms of complex waveforms. So you're going to see here I'm on a fixed waveform. So basically I'm a sine wave. This is a pass-through wave shaper. We're starting at the initial phase of the operator, so we're starting at the 0 point, which means there's no slope, aka there is no phase modulation. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to start changing the initial phase, which means we're going to start creeping up this sine wave. So we're going to start changing the slope, depending on what point we pick, of the modulation, okay, along with the DC offset, whether it's going positive or negative. So check this out. So you should be able to hear that we've wave shaped that a little bit. We just shifted it up an octave. Come back to where we have been before. So you can see we potentially have the ability, okay, by enveloping and changing the index to this operator, focusing on different areas of the harmonic spectrum of the input wave. So that was kind of the fundamental thing that they were thinking about. And then, of course, by assigning different amounts of velocities, okay, to these, and in the case of the SY series, it introduced negative velocity for the first time. Okay. You could make different parts of your input waves spectrum jump up and down with dynamic playing, and that was the goal of what they wanted to do. You put something that was a harmonic structure from a sample of a piano, and then you had different operators, okay, with different phase offsets and or different waveforms, which cause a different transform. So let me show you what goes on here. So we're going to change this to operator 4. So this was operator 1. So you can see each one of these waveforms emphasizes a different area of the harmonic spectrum, as well as distorting it slightly. So you actually create different harmonic balances from what you had in your source wave. So let's just go to 3 here, because I happen to like 3. Go to 4. So up to 16. So again, this just started as a triangle wave. So that's what led them down this path to try to turn this into a resynthesis engine. And as I said, it didn't work, but we still have these tools of phase manipulation and wave shaping to change our harmonic content in the sample that's different than the filter. All right. What's the M word, Grace? Oh, anyway. Okay, so practical applications of it. So what can you do with this? Let me show you some examples, and then we'll break stuff down. And I'll try not to get too lost and too frustrated at the fact that I've got 40,000 presses on the buttons on this SY99. So let's exit out of here. So let's go to something that is my best attempt to recreate what they were attempting to do with this synthesis system. Before I play it, I want to break it down so you guys can see what we're doing here. We're basically starting with the piano sample just mapped out to do the turn off the FX. Standard filter modulation of brightness with velocity. Okay, basic Rompler stuff. So, as I mentioned, the goal was to have different harmonic content dynamically controlled by coming through the FM engine. So let's show you what that's all about. I'm going to show you what it sounds like. I'm going to show you how we put it together. So this is just the FM side with the piano sample going through it. Turn that up. So you should be able to hear that we have a lot more high harmonic content, a couple of different additional overtones with a lot of extreme velocity control. So we put them both together, and our piano sound goes from this, to this. So we've added a lot of extra harmonic content on the attack for dynamic control. So let's go and deconstruct what this is all about. So let's go to, come on, 2-button work. There we go. First, I'll show you the algorithm that we're using here. And we've got a stack of 3 and a branch of 2. And our operators are set to a couple of fixed frequencies, a couple of ratios. And I'm going to show you what each part of these are doing. Okay, so let's break down operators 1, 2, and 3 first. So this is what they sound like. Now this is straightforward, bringing in the full harmonic content of the piano. And what we've done with our settings here is a couple of things. Let's go to the output level, show you what the balances are. So we've got a value of 5 and 3 for bringing the AWM into the fixed frequencies of operators 1 and 2. And then we have operator 3 acting as a standard modulator to bring some additional harmonic content through there. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the sample. Again, sorry, this is really soft. But basically, this is operator 3 set to a ratio of 3.0. Okay, that's coming through the same signal chain as our sample. So we have, a branched modulator situation. We have operator 3, we have the sample going into operator 2. And then I'm going to turn off operator 3. So this is the sample coming through the fixed frequencies of operator 2 and operator 1. And what I've done here is I put some very slow fixed frequency things in here because actually I want this to do a little phasing. So to enrich the harmonic movement of the sustain portion of the sound, I'm basically putting a slow LFO type effect in here. So I'm going to exaggerate it here so you guys hear what's going on. So again, apologize, that's very low, but it's the unfortunate nature of branched too many carriers. So I'm creating a phasing in the sound to just improve the lack of static looping in the sustain portion. Okay, so the other thing we've done is we are distorting the waveform slightly by having the phase offset here. And most importantly, how much we hear of each is based on these two guys right here. Okay, so we have no input. We're going to bring in, that's all in operator 2. It's all in operator 1. And you can hear, this is the thing that drives people nuts when they start programming this, is they wonder, everything's just a bunch of noise. How is this useful? Okay. First thing is, don't start at maximum, right? Oh, let's program FM. Let's put everything at 99 or 127 first. No. Bring yourself up gradually. All right. And the reason why this is really difficult to get a handle on is because you don't understand that you'll typically see by default 7 on all the initial patchings from everybody, and the fact that the element output level is the modulation index. So since that is typically set at maximum when you are in that voice, you have to use this to set your modulation index level. So the important part is just keep it out of the noisy distortion range. So we're going to add in operator 3. Now I'm going to turn that up so you can hear it a little more accentuated. So turn it off. So we're adding that third harmonic overtone with velocity. I'm going to play really soft. You can hear it there. Again, I apologize that the levels I can't keep constant on this. So that's what we have coming through the AWM stack. Let's look at what we have going on over here. So we've got a standard branched situation, 5 and 6 feeding into 4. And our operator relationships are 0 fixed frequency on operator 4, and then we have 6 and 11 with a couple of different waveforms on 5 and 6. And what they sound like is this. Okay, and what I'm again using that to do is to put additional harmonics into the sound that aren't in the original sample, put them under different velocity control. I have our AWM going into op 5 and op 6. Now, more importantly here, you're going to notice that I have a lot of level scaling going on, so that up here, it's basically just 5 and 6, and down here, hear the dominance of the high harmonics on here. That are the piano AWM. So altogether, this is our now you're going to notice that it has a weird phasing. And again, hopefully you're on headphones or you have it up loud enough you can hear it. That has now put some, has put some harmonic motion that we don't have in the natural sense. And let me turn back on our original sample. So as it dekeys out, you have the cycling of the loop, but there's also like a phaser thing going on in the high harmonics. And then, of course, we have the accentuated dynamic range, especially up here with the hammer strike. Anyway, let's take a break for questions, comments, and feedback. I'm going to turn to the laptop. Okay, let me scroll back. Wow, 13 people have nothing to do. Woohoo! Let's see. Welcome, Matt. I Sing, Grace, Robbie. Oh, Rich. I know you've been waiting for this one, Rich. Paul, great to see you here. And that's who I see chatting. So we got a couple of lurkers. All right. So, yeah, great. So one of the things that's interesting about that is, bringing in just different harmonics, whether it's, high or low or whatever, sub-octaves, is actually kind of a pretty cool thing because of the way the dynamicism basically expand the dynamic range. And obviously nobody can't sample a piano that brightly in the first place without a whole bunch of pre-EQ, and then you're still left with the filtering dynamics, which are completely different than FM. So that is actually kind of cool. Yeah, I agree. So that is, like I say, a very crude interpretation of what they were attempting to accomplish when they implemented this. Hey, Robert. So what are some more practical applications for it? Because, again, it's a subtle thing. It's actually really cool. If you really like to evolve sounds into harsh noise situations, it's really useful because, of course, I could have increased the amount of the sample input I have to the engine, put that on a real-time controller, and then control the dynamics between subtle and extreme. Anyway, so yeah, let's explore some other uses of this. So let's go to Let's go to Flutron. Where is that? It's D6. All right. So another thing that you can use this for is to make a tonal change. I won't say dynamic, maybe a little more static in your sample wave. That's going to sort of be, I don't want to say like complex filtering because it's a little bit more than that. But I just call it what it is. It's wave shaping. Okay. So I've got this sound here. I call it Flutron. And it's starting with the piccolo sample. Okay, but we're wave shaping it, so we're harshing it up and dirtying it up. So let's show you how we went through and do this. And again, it's the same fundamentals that we had before. This time I'm using algorithm 42. I got 3 modulators, 3 carriers, and our operators are set thusly. Our first pair is a fixed frequency, 2 fixed frequencies. Our second pair is another 2 fixed frequencies. And our third pair, guess what, is a fixed frequency with 1 ratio, but I don't think I'm using that. Let me double check. No, I'm not using it. So this is all fixed frequency, phase offset, waveform, wave shaping of our original sample. So let's show you how the parts evolve here. So let's go to operator 1, mute everything. So this is our flute, our piccolo sample coming through operator 1 with the phase offset. So basically I'm accentuating the first overtone here. Now I want to put it back to where it was. This is important. Now operator 2, I have the slow phasing, okay? But this isn't a carrier this time, right? This is a modulator. So what this operator is doing very slowly is it is taking this guy and essentially doing this to it. It's slowly rolling the phase offset in real time. So you hear that slow phasing? Turn it off. So again, now I have some different harmonic motion from the original sample. Let's go to operator 3. Now I've got a completely different waveform. Waveform 5 had a completely different initial phase offset. So since this is a pretty highly sloped waveform with the full sine wave in the half cycle, you can see it added a lot of harmonics compared to operator 1. Okay. Demonstrate the phase shift again. And then for operator 4, we've done the same thing. We're going to be shifting its phase in real time to move it back and forth at a different rate as before. Oh, sorry, same rate as before. It almost sounds like I put a phaser on the sound. So this is one of the subtle things that is really cool about having these phase offsets, the classic low frequency modulators, and the complex waveforms, in that, you know, the wave shaping can be dynamically controlled. And of course, the amount of it can be put on a controller if you'd like. So actually, let me do that real quick. So let's go to our EG bias page. Let's put that to, let's actually put to 13. Let me make sure I don't have this on. Okay. All right, so we'll put that on our second controller. Let's put the bias depth at, let's put it full bore. What the hell? Okay, and now we're going to go back over to our sensitivity page. And we're going to turn on our AMOD sense to our modulators to full. And I'm going to go ahead and crank the heck out of their output. They're pretty high already, but here's what I got to do. I got to get rid of the keyboard scale slope so you can really hear this going on here. All right, so now mod wheel is down. Nothing. Let me isolate these. Let's go back to 3. So that's operator 3. This is operator 1 and 2. So that's with none. Bring the controller up. So now we have it under dynamic control. And it's fun and distorted. Anyway, let's quit out. Good. Let's go back into our guy here. So anyway, so you can put that under dynamic control. Now let's go to operator 5, so I left him out. And this is, again, another fixed frequency, but you're going to see that it's the sine wave. I got 0 phase offset. More importantly, I don't have any modulator because 6 is not being used. So this is essentially bringing the straight harmonic content of the sample to mix with these other guys. So our adding the operator 1 and 2. This is just straight. And the other guy. And I have that on velocity. So again, subtle stuff, but it's the same thing we did with the piano. We added harmonic content under independent control that is resident in the original sample, but accentuated and or slightly distorted. So let me catch up on the chat. Cool. I can fight that copyright strike, Robbie, because it's for educational purposes. All right. So let's exit out of this and look at some other things that we can do with our 7th operator. So as I mentioned, we can filter and do other dynamic control of our guy because it's independent from the engine. I'm going to do initial voice here. Let's build this from scratch. Playing without a net. All right. Let's kill the volume because it's going to be really loud. Okay, so we are going to show an example of using a filtered waveform as a modulator. And instead of playing with the index to change our modulation effect with our FM operators, we're going to be using the filter cutoff manipulation. So first things first, let's go in here and give us a wave that is harmonically rich that we can get some filtering of. Let's go to the sawtooth wave. Let's turn off, actually let's not turn that off yet. Let's just, yeah, actually this is just the regular sample. And let's inject it into our AWM. For this, we're just going to go ahead and we'll use Happy Algorithm 42 because it's useful for so many things. And now we are going to turn in our inputs. We're going to turn our AWM on here. We're going to kill our inputs down nice and low. All right, you're going to see we just have operator 1 going on right now. So this is straightforward phase modulation relationship using a complex wave, in this case a sawtooth from the AWM, as our modulator to our sine wave carrier, because you'll see that operator 1 is set to ratio 1. Okay, so everybody's familiar with that type of FM interaction, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this up a little more. I'll do that later. So let's go back to our sample side. All right, so this is our sample on its own. Actually, let me demonstrate one thing else first here, just to make sure that I'm confusing the hell out of everybody. So as I mentioned, part of the reason why everybody just goes to everything full on is the architecture of this is not clear how everything interacts. So as I mentioned, you have your 7 levels of control on your AWM input page, but in reality, the modulation index is set by the voice volume. Now we've turned the outputs, the audio outputs off, but this is the actual internal routing of it. So check this out. Okay, so this is where everybody gets flummoxed by it because they don't understand that this and the AWM input value affect your mod index. That's why everybody tends to have everything on because everything defaults here. Anyway, so let's go back to this guy. Let's hear the sample only. Let's go to the filter. So I'm going to get pretty extreme here. And we're going to do a little real-time modulation of it. Let's go to our filter cutoff. Let's put it on that guy. And again, let's turn that off. And let's give it a depth of 64. So let's go back here. All right, so we're going to crank the resonance, lower our cutoff. So classic resonant low pass filter motion. All right, so now let's put that behavior into our FM engine and see what the heck that does. Anybody want to hazard a guess? Guarantee you we're all wrong because when I first did this years ago, it did not do what I expected. But it does some fun stuff. So let's turn on our FM side, turned off the sample side so I'm not hearing it directly. So my mod wheel is down, so obviously we're not going to hear any of our modulator, which in this case is our sawtooth, our filtered sawtooth. So now I'm going to raise the mod wheel. Now it has a lot of the characteristics, okay, of the original. Okay, but because of the FM interaction, the harmonic distribution is different. So it's actually got a more nasal, like I hate to use the term, FM-y quality to it. This is the pure sample in the filter. And this is the FM version. So here, there, you kind of get that nasal modulator stuff you hear all the time in FM. So let's do one of our other tricks, which is to phase offset. Let's see. There we go. Let's hear what this one does, 0 to full. So it's really changed the characteristic of the original. Now you can mix them together. Not that exciting. Let's go back over here. And again, let's change some waveforms. That's actually pretty good. Kind of have a little oscillator sync thing going on down there. So a lot of neat little sonic bits available there. One of the things that's cool is if you want to do like wavetable evolving type sounds, you got to remember you have your looping envelopes in this guy, and you could have this operator's contribution of that sample aspect looping on its envelopes, not just under controllers. So let's go extreme here and change some of our filtering stuff around. So what we're going to do is we're going to crank the resonance to self-resonance level here. This is going to get crazy. Okay, so you may ask yourselves, well, what is that doing and why are we hearing all that weird stuff? Let me tune this up here. Okay. So what I've done here is I've tuned the filter to be on the 5th, so 3rd harmonic of the sawtooth wave. All right. Now we have it self-resonating. Basically pulled out that little sine wave there. You just hear the different tuning. So that's on the fundamental. So let's take it to the 5th. It's tuned on the G because I don't have the key tracking on. But now I can use the mod wheel. Pick out all the individual harmonics. So what I've done here in a weird way is I've got a real-time sweep of oscillator frequency of my modulator. So here we're going up the harmonic series. And again, I don't have my keyboard tracking, so it's fixed. So that's something you can't do in the FM engine, okay? There's a pitch envelope, but you don't have any real-time control of operator pitch. So again, it's a unique behavior that has some limited use, but again, it's pretty cool. So now let's do something different here. We're going to go to all right, so you may have noticed I've just changed my filter type from dual low pass to single. So filters, early digital filters, they are resonant, which is cool. Yamaha's got a couple of weird quirks here. They are multi-mode. The first filter can be off, low pass, or high pass. The second one is off or low pass only. So you basically have minus 12 dB low pass, minus 12 dB high pass. They are in series. You cannot change the routing. So if you want a 24 dB, you put low pass, low pass. All right. If you would like a band pass, you go high pass, low pass, and it's 12 dB slopes. The thing that's really annoying is that your resonance does not work in high pass mode. Why is that an issue? I'm going to show you in a minute. So let's go back here and let's just go to the 12 pole. Now, even though the resonance is cranked, this 12 pole, this 12 dB filter does not self-resonate. Anyway, so let's go to high pass mode. And let's put it into bandpass mode. Now, let's separate the bands here. I'm going to ring out the high pass really high. Pass really low. So we're just getting the top edge of that waveform. And now here's what we're going to do. We're going to select a very high bandwidth out of our sample. So I'm going to go to the stuff waves here, because these are essentially the looped part of a lot of the samples. So let me play you what's going on here. So let's pick a nice stuff wave here. There. That's the sustaining loop of the string sample. So now, let's hear our. Let's watch our filter evolution here. So if I turn this down, turn that up, okay, we hear the basic sample pass through with a little bit of distortion on it. Let's turn both these to low pass mode. Do the filter trick with the resonance. Sorry. So that's kind of fun, although you may ask yourself, well, I just could have done that with a sample, but let's do this. How do we control the ratio offset? And that is with the master tuning. So, hope you're paying attention. We've just changed the operator ratio of our modulating string loop to a 2-to-1 relationship to our carrier. So that's something you cannot do just mixing samples. So I've created a square wave quality waveform of the fundamental structure of the low harmonics, but all the other harmonics of our string sample are giving it that stringy quality to our square wave, but it's not a mix, and I'll show you the difference in a minute. So that's got a really nice organic noise component in the high harmonics. All right. So let's show you what the difference is if we don't use RCM for this. So let's go to our page here. We're going to kill out our inputs. So we just have our sine wave. We're going to go back to our outputs, turn on our sample. So that's straightforward mixing. Okay, and this is RCM. Now, let's mix them and RCM them. Carrier fun. So again, even though the original intent of it was not able to be implemented, it is actually still kind of useful. Questions, comments? Let me check the chat. Yes, David, SY79. Okie dokie. All right, so practical applications. Let's look at some practical applications of what you can do with this. Let me just play through some examples for maybe the next 15 minutes and give some basic breakdowns on what they entail. So let's go to the C bank. And let's look at these guys. Okay, so this is utilizing the concept of the 7th operator. And what we're using is the digital 9-wave as our operator, and it's going into straight carriers on everybody. Okay, so you're going to see here that they all have a ton of input. There are some feedbacks which aren't that important here, but let's show you what we got here. I've got essentially a combination of ratio and fixed. So the reason why I call this an additive an RCM is because it's using the principles of FM and different frequency carriers that are sharing a common modulator. So I'm going to turn off our sample. So let's walk through all the waves here. That's operator 1, operator 2, add in operator 3, add in 4, add in 5. So we sort of have a little plucky organ sound. And we've got the fundamental twice with some phase and waveform things to shape them. We've got the first harmonic, and we've got the 8th and the 10th. So now when we bring in our stuff wave, sorry, it's our digital wave. So it's changed this digital wave from this to a guitar timbre. And again, we have dynamics for different parts of it. So what's interesting is if we keep those same FM operator relationships and just scroll through the digitals, you'll notice that there's not a whole lot of change here. And that's just basically because these digital waves are excuse me, pretty similar. Let's see what happens if we were to use a regular full spectrum wave. You'll see there's not really much change going on here because we have a dominance of the FM side and just a bunch of noise on the other side. So these guys are things that have to be really tweaked out to find what works with each individual one. Let me quit here. Quit. Thank you. Distortion version. So again, show you with it off and on. This is no sample with the sample, or in this case, 7th operator. Let's go to these guys. All right, let's break down this bad boy. So I have a set of some fairly basic phasing FM operators with essentially sawtooth waves, a couple of harmonic selections. Let's see what we got going on here. Algorithm 30. Our different parts are the 1-2 stack. Barely hear that, but that is a very slow phase. With this guy and then the WM coming in. And then we have the 4 stack, which is basically a phasing sawtooth square wave deal. All right, so this is the FM part. So let's go to our outputs. Let's isolate the sample side. So we are using the sample called bell ring here. We are transposing it down 2 octaves. And I think I have it on altered? No, I don't. So let's do that. So this is the thing that's cool about having your 7th operator, even if you're just using it as a triangle wave, okay? And that you can set individual tuning tables for each element here. And one of the things that Yamaha did for me is they put a couple of tables in the presets, the quarter tone table, the 8th tone table, and the quarter tone low. So what these are is that these don't track to pitch. They track either quarter tone or 8th tone. So let's go and turn this off on the audio and turn it. So check that out. Now that's velocity. As you're going to see on the filter, we've got it self-resonating with a lot of velocity. So that's bringing out different carrier relationships with velocity. Let me turn this down. So let's have some more fun. Let's change the tuning. So now you can get into some weird granular goodness using the samples, especially if you use samples that have some interesting harmonic motion in them. Let's swap out our wave, see what happens here. Typist. I like these low frequencies. Now remember, we are on the quarter tone low here. Let's bring that in more. Let's see. Change the filtering. So all sorts of fun, crazy granulation type stuff you can go in there. Anyway, we've hit an hour, and I think I've kind of showed the basics here. Let's see if there's anything else. Let's go to C10. So again, using the sample to bring in sort of a D50 noisy component without having to do a bunch of fancy tricks. Those things are kind of nice. And then I'm going to go back to the one I was playing when I came in, because this one's just a lot of fun. What the heck? D3. There's aftertouch on the filter here. of fun stuff. That's the history of Yamaha's RCM, aka sample modulators, as FM interactors. Fun stuff. Lots of exploration in there, because for those who think FM is not intuitive, basically this takes it to the next level. A lot of times when I find some nice textures, the first thing I'll do is I'll do sample swap out and tuning ratio swap outs along with those filter things. So it is definitely an area that is fairly unique. The only other thing you can do, Korg Mod 7 in the Chronos series, you can do this kind of wacky stuff because you can bring samples in and you can apply filters. Interestingly, the mod wave, you can put filters in, but of course you can't do samples. But unfortunately, there's no phase offsets in the Op6, which is my biggest knock against it. Otherwise, it's a great machine. So, EX. So, no icing. The EX series was completely different in what they were doing. It was taking some of the concepts of what they were trying to accomplish here by doing per note DSP. So what FDSP was real-time signal processing, basically a whole bunch of weird algorithms that would reshape on a per note basis the inputs, and those inputs could obviously be the samples from the base engine. Interestingly enough, if I recall correctly, the other components of the engine could also be FDSP'd. The most famous effect in there is the one they call the water or typhoon effect, which is sort of the sample and hold resonant guy that makes everything sound like a babbling brook with the amount of modulation on it. It's a really cool effect. Interesting enough, that actually came out of the VP. There is a number of patches in the VP1 that utilize essentially the physical model to build that algorithm. But Toshi, the main thing that they were trying to do with that is to, again, create dynamicism with their samples. So one of the reasons why the electronic piano samples are really so alive in the EX series is because they have a very nicely modeled electromechanical pickup model that's used for that. So even though the sample may be a single or basic two-velocity multi-sample, they've got a very sophisticated processing of that. So it literally has the harmonic motion that it would have if it actually went through a true pickup. So that's one of the reasons why the EX series, the 5 obviously, the best of the bunch, is so revered for a lot of its piano and electronic piano stuff. All right. Any other last-minute comments or questions? Something that might need clarification? Something that was just like, what the fuck did he say? Otherwise, I've got to take this last patch I have up, take it in the other room, and try to do my hardware jam for the week. Because it's going to layer up with a bunch of my Buchla stuff I got to do. Yeah, so the SY22, basically the SY series, you got your 35, you got the 33, you got the 22, the 85, the 55, the 77, and the 99, and of course the TG rack. And Robbie, am I forgetting anybody? And the SY77 and the SY99 are the only ones that do this stuff. All the rest of them are straight romplers. The Vector one is actually kind of cool because, of course, it mimics a lot of what the Prophet VS did and that kind of thing. Excuse me. But these two, the SY77 and the SY99, are the only ones that have the advanced FM engine in it. One of the things that's actually kind of cool is going to being at Intervention Road a couple weeks ago. was I got to meet up with Hideki Matsuda, who was one of the engineers that I first met on the SY77 years ago. He's not the guy responsible for the Samurai Mount Fuji crash animation, but he was one of the guys on the team, and gosh, I hadn't seen him in 30 plus years. All right, guys, we're going to call it a wrap. Thank you so much for attending, and maybe next month or so, I'll come up with something else in the FM realm to do another FaceTime Playhouse. Again, thanks so much. As long as I can figure out how to turn it off. Oh, and don't forget, everybody, Get Jervis is streaming in a couple hours.